The Bad Batch, Episodes 15 and 16, The Summit and Plan 99. Needing to find the location of where Crosshair is kept captive, the Batch come up with a plan to bug Dr. Hemlock's ship with a tracker, while he attends an Imperial conference hosted by Governor Moff Tarkin on Eridayu, which is not only the planet Tarkin was born on, but now even has a base on the exact mountain he once climbed in his youth. Pretty neat. The plan itself is simple enough. Sneak in, infiltrate the base, install the tracker, leave, and wait for Hemlock to lead them to Mount Tantiss on Wayland. And for the most part, everything did go without a hitch, at least until things started getting strange, with the Batch noticing a high number of offline security cameras, and then of course a thermal detonator planted inside the base. And who was this all done by? Well, no other than Saw Gerrera, who gets in an argument with the Batch, as he wants to blow up the base while they want just the opposite, telling him that he's at risk of ruining their entire plan on tracking Hemlock, to which Saw could care less, just as long as he gets to blow up some high-ranking imps. Meanwhile, at Tarkin's meeting, we see several Imperials next to him and Hemlock, as there is Hurst Ramadi, notable for his appearances in Rogue One and A New Hope, Barton Coburn, a notable former Republic officer from the Clone Wars, which I did like that he was the only one at the table to actually, speak positively about the clones. And then, of course, Orson Krennic, who at this time is only a commander and not yet a director. And this is yet another fun little cameo, as while I think he barely even had a line of dialogue here, which I'm pretty sure is just 2 or 3 words they got Ben Mendelsohn to record in his hotel closet or something like that. I still loved seeing Krennic show up in some capacity in a Star Wars show, not to mention that it is nice to see that he and Tarkin were still on good terms in the early days of the Empire, especially considering Project Stardust was just in the beginning phase and all. Also, since we're on this scene, I'm absolutely loving the new TKs shown here. The Phase Zero or Proto Stormtroopers as I like to call them, but in the Shock Trooper variant. And dang, dude, they look good. Now, despite the Batches and Saw's best efforts, suffice to say the Imperials do catch on to what is happening, it's kinda hard not to, and both their plans go awry, leading the two parties to immediately retreat to the base after their cover has been blown. But of course, just before Saw does leave, he sets his explosions off, which, while it does plenty of damage to the hangar at least, it however barely does much to the remainder of the base, especially to the part where, Tarkin, Hemlock, and the rest are sitting around. So either Saw wasn't anywhere near complete in planting his thermal detonators, or he was, for the most part, and his plan itself, just terrible at it. Regardless, this becomes a complete failure of a mission for both him and the Batch, and unlike Saw, who does get away easily without suffering any casualties to his disguised partisans, let me tell you, it's a different story for the Batch, who need to take the long and hard way out via train rail. And it's here during a daring escape that we get the very first death of a Bad Batcher, Tech, who goes out on his own terms, sacrificing himself for the squad with a fantastic final line too in "Since when have we ever followed orders?" Honestly, it's a shame to see Tech go, seeing how much character development he's received this season alone. And while I did think that he was going to kick the bucket eventually, I really expected Wrecker to go out first before him. But given Tech's so-called farewell with Fee earlier in the episode, I can't say I was too surprised with his death here. That was pretty much the foreshadowing for this all. The Batch afterwards retreat to Ord Mantell to seek refuge at Cid's, mainly for Omega to receive medical care from AZ. And once there, I began to wonder, okay, so they ghosted Cid the entire time, yet she seems to be pretty cool with it, but something also seemed to be off. And yeah, it was, as that's when we realized that Cid's true colors show by ratting out the Batch to the Empire, who come in and arrest Wrecker and Hunter. But I gotta say, either Wrecker is seriously some kind of abnormal, or the Clone Commandos' blasters need a second look at. Because no matter what amount of stun blast they shot at him, Wrecker was still awake and conscious the entire time, which again, not sure if that's due to just him being a beast or faulty blasters. Anyway, Hemlock leaves Cid's bar in disappointment for not being able to grab Omega, the whole point he came here in the first place, and well, fortunately for him, he doesn't have to wait too long, as Omega rather foolishly shows herself, then run away like Hunter told her to, and as expected, it doesn't go well as she quickly gets knocked out and captured by Scorch. And looking back, this was a complete and utter bonehead decision by Omega, as for one, what could she had possibly had done against an entire squad of clone commandos? And as well too, because Hunter and Wrecker are leaving on another transport than Hemlock, they luckily are able to be saved by Echo, who commandeers a proto-ATST and breaks them out. So not only would Hunter and Wrecker still had been freed at the end of the episode, but Omega would have been able to join them afterwards had she ran away like Hunter told her to, but nope, clearly she did not think this through. Which is a bit of a shame, as I felt Omega was starting to get a lot better this second half of the season, doing, a lot less stupid choices and not being as much of an annoying nuisance like she once was before. Pretty much becoming an equal part of the team, and her trying to become a hero here disappointed me, but at the same time I can't say I was all too surprised. As then again, she is a kid with a weapon and she was going through a lot of emotions during this moment. Then once on Mount Tantiss and reunited with Nala Se, Omega is then introduced to Hemlock's lab where he experiments on all of the clones. And this is interesting to see all of these tubes and vats similar to what we've seen in The Mandalorian, and as well of course in The Rise of Skywalker. Which I don't know about you, but I didn't have clones being the first step in creating Snoke in my bingo card. Omega's attention is then taken to Crosshair, who is also in the lab and unconscious. Terrified to see him like this, Emery Carr steps in to try to comfort her and drops a major bombshell on both her and to us the audience that, yes, as it turns out, Omega is not in fact the only female clone, as so is she as well. Which is pretty wild, as while we did have female clones before in Legends, this was certainly not the case in canon. At least thus far, which is what made Omega so unique in being the only female clone around, and well, not anymore. And this now makes me curious if Hemlock's other female assistant, Scalder, is also a female clone as well. Maybe or maybe not, and probably not given that her skin complexion is definitely lighter than Carr's. But yeah, at this point I think it's safe to say that there are two options here regarding Carr. Either she was created more recently specifically to help on Mount Tantiss, or more likely she's like the Bad Batch themselves. As remember Nala Se's hidden lab in the Season 1 finale? If you recall, we saw at least 10 growth chambers there, which it shouldn't be out of the question that the Batch themselves are not the only unique clones. So what I'm thinking is that Carr is the 5th enhanced clone created alongside Hunter, Crosshair, Tech, and Wrecker, as that was probably Carr's chamber, as she was likely born the same time as the Bad Batch, given that she does look to be around their age. But of course was taken away at a young age that none of them would have remembered her. Either way, an interesting cliffhanger to end things off, to say the least. On one hand, I'm disappointed that the finale was a failed mission after failed mission. Nothing was really accomplished, and instead, the batch were taking losses left to right, all without gaining anything whatsoever. Not only that, but we also got almost no new answers and instead are left with even more questions than before. But then again, I suppose that's the beauty of it, as this season finale is basically, if you think about it, the Empire Strikes Back of the Bad Batch in a way, as it's meant to end on a somber note, where the Empire went for now, but later we'll see a comeback by the good guys and it will feel even sweeter than normal. As for these last two finale episodes, I still think they were great. Nothing amazing, but for sure great. Definitely not the best in the season in my opinion, and that's not taking away anything from these two because there is some crazy high competition for the best episodes for me, being of course the Outpost, my favorite one, the Clone Conspiracy, or the Solitary Clone, which I'd say are my top 3 episodes of the season. But having said that, The Summit and Plan 99 is nonetheless still a good watch and an appropriate end to the season, which, hey, let's be real, wasn't exactly the most consistent in terms of writing quality. As for Season 2 overall, what I'm thinking about it, it's hard to say, as it had some real high highs, but also at the same time some real low lows. The first half of the season was rather slow and weak, going a bit through the motions, I'd say. Although there were some good and even fantastic bits and pieces here and there. Just there was not that much of that, and what there was a lot, it was largely forgettable. But the second half, on the other hand, woof, it killed it. To the point that, I don't know about you, but it became even more interesting than The Mandalorian Season 3, at least for me. The pacing, the character development was superb and had me looking forward to seeing new Bad Batch episodes over Mando. Which, had you told me this at the start of the season, I would have called blasphemy. But, well, yet here we are. And that was my take on the season finale of The Bad Batch. Let me know what you all thought about the episodes in the comments below, and if you haven't already, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one.